Welcome to the Broadway Jets YouTube. NYJ Mike and I, NYJ Matt, are going to go ahead and do a tier list of all the starting quarterbacks in the New York Jets history. Mike, you've never done a tier list before, so we're going to tackle this. Are you ready to go?
Yeah, I thought it had something to do with crying or sadness, but it's a tier list.
Understood.
Excited.
Now we made categories here on the left. We might change them throughout. We don't really know what we're going to do, but if you are listening, this is the first of many. We're going to do a handful of tier lists down the line. So if you are listening, hit that subscribe button and we'll go ahead and get the video started. So that top category there, elite, only one option to put there, Joe Namath. Did you know Joe Namath had sex with Mike Greenberg's mom?
I think I did know that.
I made it. Yeah, I heard a rumor. I'm just gonna.
He spoke about that.
I'm gonna make it fact. Yeah, probably. If your grandparents are around 80 years old, there's an odd chance that Joe Namath crossed paths with them at a New York City bar. But obvious 1-1 option. I don't even want to put anyone else near that category.
No, it's not. It would tamper down our list. It would water it down. And look, after what Mike Greenberg said about Adam Gase, that he wants Adam Gase back, even if he said it in jest, I actually don't hope that Joe Namath was with his mom, because that's a good thing.
Fair enough. I hate Mike Greenberg. He should denounce his Jets fandom. But the final category at the bottom is the Dick Wood category.
For sure.
He deserved his own category. The only better name in Jets history is defensive back Dick Felt. But Dick Wood has his own category down here. And then these middle categories are where we're going to have these 14 other quarterbacks fit in. And there's a few that we don't include. I think Bob Davis started in 1962. We kind of left him out of it.
We left off Matt Robinson.
In
1978.
So, Mike, where do you want to start? A handful of names down here.
It's really tough. This is a really, really tough list, because I don't want to offend any Jet players that we love. Like, what do we do with Mark Sanchez? What do we do with Sam Darnold? Especially like Darnold, in the beginning of his career, played a couple years. Like, where do these guys fit in?
I think we have to balance who they are as a Jet, right? We're not saying that a great quarterback is a necessarily great quarterback throughout NFL history. And we also have to, account for what they did, their accomplishments on the team and for the franchise, as well as if they're a good player or not.
Right. But is it also relative to the Jets? Like, if a guy throws for like 22 touchdowns and throws for 3,400 yards, in relation to the NFL, it's not that good. But in our history, it is.
Yeah. Our team, we're looking at our franchise.
Okay. I like it.
So let's start. I think we can go with Vinny here. Vinny's a great Jet.
Vinny is a for sure great Jet.
He's a great Jet. Obviously, the 98 season puts him here alone. But when you go back and you watch clips from those games, he's a legit top 5, top 7 quarterback during that time frame. Like, the guy fucking balled out. He's definitely a great Jet.
He should have been the MVP in 1998. The Jets went 12-1 with him as a starter. He had 29 touchdowns, 7 picks. And people forget. Obviously, they don't forget that he tore his Achilles in week 1 of 1999, but they forget that the Jets were 9-4 in 2000, and before missing the playoffs with some tough losses down the stretch. And they made the playoffs with Vinny in 2001, and he has a winning record as a Jet quarterback. Statistically, he was good. I think he's for sure a great Jet quarterback, and most Jet fans love Vinny T.
Yeah,
especially from like that, people that were old enough at that time to, watch the Jets.
No, definitely a great quarterback. Another one that I don't really know where we can put is Al Duro. Al Duro was the New York Titan quarterback. He put up objectively insane numbers for his time period.
He was good.
He was really good. For the Jets, he was 13-14. One year he had 26 touchdowns, 26 interceptions. I mean,
he led the league in touchdowns.
I almost want to put him in the Dick Wood category just because two older guys. I'm putting, for now, Al Duro is in the Dick Wood category.
Al Duro is Dick Wood. What is this, like Russell West? What did Colin Cowherd say? Russell Westbrook is Cam Newton.
Yep, that
Al Duro is Dick Wood.
Let's go with Brett Favre. We'll go Brett Favre here. I think he belongs in the veterans who did their job or good Jets quarterbacks. Talk to me.
I would put him under good Jets quarterback.
Ooh, I like it. Okay, tell me why.
I mean, he went 9-7 as a starter with the Jets. The Jets were 8-3, and they were a Super Bowl contender. They were top 5 in the power rankings at that moment in time. And Favre got hurt. He tore his shoulder and didn't say anything to anybody. And the Jets go 1-4 down the stretch, but I think he was good. I mean, he was good. He threw for 3,400 yards and 22 touchdowns. Is kind of what I was referring to before. So
I think people overused the Favre didn't tell people about the shoulder injury thing, right? The Jets were 8-3. If at that time Favre sat himself, people would have freaked out in hindsight if they didn't make the playoffs. He should have played through it if he could have. So I'm fine.
100%. It just is sad that that's how it went down. Not because he didn't tell anybody, just because he tore his shoulder.
Right. And 2008 is always meaningful for you and I because we were, call it 12 years old at that time. Like that's when you can finally really grasp everything that's happening. You don't just call yourself a Jet fan because you wear the jersey. We actually got that team and understood the player. So always have a soft spot for Brett the Jet. I love him in the good Jet quarterback category.
Also, Brett Favre made the Pro Bowl that year. So
great point.
Back it up.
Gotta be the last Jet quarterback to make a Pro Bowl, no?
Fitz didn't make it in 2015, so yeah.
Gotta be.
Yeah.
We can go with Boomer, WFAN host. Boomer
probably goes into that veterans who did their job category, but Boomer also was a Pro Bowler in 1993. And that 93 team is underrated. They were 8-5 at one point and also lost the last 3 games of the season, but close games. And Boomer threw for over 3,000 yards, 16 touchdowns, good completion percentage. He had and he was also the quarterback of the 94 team. They were 6-5, and that's the fake spike game with Pete Carroll as our coach, and Marino threw the fake spike, and then the Jets lost out that year also. So the Jets had some success with Boomer. It wasn't like a horrific team. So he definitely did his job, but I don't know if I would put him in the good category.
There was a weird clause in his trade when he came over from the Bengals that he couldn't complete a certain amount of passes, or there was something, his QBR, and Jets fans were rooting against Boomer week 16 because they would have netted us a better draft pick if he didn't play well that game. So interesting Boomer fun fact there. I agree. He deserves to be in that veterans who did their job category. Mike, who do you want to go here next?
Let's go with where are we going to put Chad?
I think
Chad's got to be he's got to be great.
I think he's a great Jet quarterback. I think he's got to be a great Jet quarterback. Injuries played his career here. He's one of the guys that when he left the team, even though he went to a division rival, it was always a weird feeling of I'm happy he's playing well. Like he deserved to have that opportunity. I have him in the great Jet quarterback category here.
Yeah, look, I mean, the Jets had a good stretch of relatively good stretch of quarterback play from 98 until 2011, or even 2012. You have to count that as Sanchez's last year. All 3 of Testaverde, Pennington, and Sanchez had a winning record as quarterback with the Jets. All 3 guys made the playoffs multiple times as the starters. So, and Chad was arguably the best of all of them. He was the NFL's leading passer and completion percentage when he retired. He made the playoffs in every year as a starter with the Jets. So Chad is just terrific. And it's a shame that he never made a Pro Bowl with the Jets, but I think he's for sure. He led the league in quarterback rating one year. He's, fantastic.
Yeah. Agreed. We can go Neil O'Donnell here. Where do you think Neil fits into this bunch?
It's interesting. Neil is probably an underperformer. Things would be different if in 1997, the Jets again had a chance to make the playoffs in a win and in situation in week 17. And Parcells had a weird call. He dialed up a halfback pass with Leon Johnson and he got picked off. And the Jets don't make the playoffs that year, but Neil was 8-6 as a starter. But before that, he was horrific. He was there with the Kotite years. So a lot of Jet fans look poorly upon him, but people forget he was in the Super Bowl with the Steelers. So I think it's fair to say that he was an underperformer with the Jets. But he wasn't as, it wasn't horrific if people look back on it.
Agreed. And I think also these aren't defined to their category. If we look at the end of it, we want to move people around. We have every right to go ahead and move them around. So that's where we have him for now. Let's go Fitzpatrick.
Category. Fitz. I think Fitz is a good Jet quarterback for sure. But
I think he dots the line between good Jet quarterbacks and veterans who did their job, just because 2016 was really a disaster of a year with high hopes and high expectations. I think he's right on that border. 2015 unbelievable memories. Right now, the sentiment on Jets Twitter is very anti-Fitzpatrick.
It is, right? Usually it's the opposite. Usually the guy leaves
The
and
president,
then
the
it
president
gets
effect.
right. The president effect. The takes get softer as time goes on, but it has not been that way with Fitz, right? People seem to get more bitter as time goes on, but I think they forget that Fitzpatrick holds the Jets record for touchdown passes in a season with 31, and he would be the yardage leader also if he didn't hurt his thumb against the Raiders. Joe Namath threw for 4,007 yards, and Fitz threw for 3,905 yards. If he played one more game, he would have
Right.
probably had that record. So I'm happy to put Fitz in the good quarterback. People though are a little feisty now. They always bring up that week 17 loss, which did happen, and he wasn't good, but he did win 5 games in order to get there.
Yeah, and again, it's one of those things. I want to have a good balance in the tier list. We don't want to be too top heavy, too bottom heavy. So I think the way we're making it here is a good starting point.
Yeah.
So we'll go here with Josh McCown. I think there's a clear spot to put Josh McCown. I want to hear what you think.
Look, I absolutely love Josh McCown, but probably veterans who did their job. I think he did his job perfectly. Not only as a starter where he threw for 18 touchdowns, 9 picks, over 63% completion percentage, and was 5 and 7 as a starter. And then as a mentor, he was just terrific. And he was so terrific as a mentor that the Jets are even thinking of bringing him back in the present time.
Couldn't agree more. You took the talking point right away from me. Not only did he do his job as a quarterback and a starter, he also did a great job mentoring the young quarterback that came through. A lot of people were mad they didn't retain him right in 2019. I love that spot for him. I think that's where he needs to be. We'll go with Richard Todd here. Dick Todd. Where do you have Richard?
This one is like super interesting.
He could be in 3 categories, in my opinion.
The only problem is he's not a veteran, or I would just throw him in that category.
Right.
Because when he was on the Jets, he was a young quarterback. I mean, he's another guy where he had he was made the playoffs multiple times. The Jets had one of their best teams in 1981 and 1982. He had the Jets almost had a miraculous comeback in the 1981 playoffs. They lost to the Bills, and then they lost in horrific fashion to the Dolphins in the championship game in 1982. And he was awful. He threw for 5 interceptions in the AFC championship game. So people have a sour taste in their mouth. I don't know. We might even have to make a new category. Like I don't know where to put him here, because you could say he's a good Jet quarterback. He probably does fit in there, but I don't think he's an underperformer.
Yeah, I mean,
like he's not the same category in Jets lore as fucking Neil O'Donnell.
I agree. I don't know, what category can we make here?
Like I feel like he would be in a similar category to like Mark Sanchez.
All right.
Like the young guy who kind of the realistic football take is that he had some team success, and Richard Todd had a really good year in 1981. He threw for 25 touchdowns, 13 picks. But it didn't work out, didn't win the ultimate big game, got to some of the big moments. It's tough. I don't know what to call it.
Maybe franchise quarterbacks who were because Darnold fits in there.
I kind of like it. I mean, yeah, because Richard Todd really he was 42 and 51 as a starter, but he had there's 2 really good years back to back. And he was in control. Like he was good when the Jets were in the playoffs in 1981 and 1982. He was very effective. But again, in 1982, he had 2 touchdowns and 8 interceptions in the playoffs. And for his Jets career, he had 4 and 12. So, you got to take that with a grain of salt.
Okay, I'm fine with that new category, and I think that segues into Darnold, and I'll put him ahead of Todd here, just because we obviously are fans of Sam Darnold, but not a shock. 2020 was such an abysmal year that the Jets ended up moving off the guy that took 3rd overall. Yeah, you can label his career. It's going to be very interesting in a decade from now how people talk about Sam Darnold. I don't know if it's going to be Ghost Boy. I don't know if it's going to be a guy that we let down. Through I think what are we in week 5, week 6 in the NFL season right now? A handful of people are starting to, come back and say, well, the Jets made the wrong move. You don't know that now. You know that 3 to 4 years from now, right? But Darnold didn't really have the fair shake in New York, but he didn't do well in the areas that he could control, and that's why they moved off him.
Yeah, look, it's just if you would have told me at this moment, if it were 2019 and you said on October of 2021, Sam Darnold's not the Jets quarterback, I wouldn't have believed you. But here we are, and it could be for the best, it could be for the worst. Sam is having an interesting start to the year in Carolina. He has a lot of turnovers, but he has been effective in some areas. I think that we had to make that category. This is maybe like a very Jet specific category. I'm trying to think of another team that has this kind of like a lot of similar guys that kind of everyone got on board with and it didn't really work out. But they weren't like complete busts, like obviously if you said that when the Jets drafted Sam 3rd overall, that 3 years later he wouldn't be on a team, he'd call that a bust. But the way that everything went down I don't think that's indicative of what happened.
No, that's fair. That's fair. I agree. Kenny O'Brien, where would you throw Kenny here?
I think Kenny has to be a good Jet quarterback.
I think he's teetering the line between good and great.
Yeah.
And I want to save Sanchez for last, but gun to head, better Jet quarterback, Kenny O'Brien or Mark Sanchez. I think one of them would fall into great, and then whoever you don't put into great would fall into good.
Yeah, no, I hear you. The problem is neither guy. Well, Kenny has 2 Pro Bowl appearances. The Jets made the playoffs, 3-4 times when Ken O'Brien was on the team. 3 times. And Sanchez was in bigger moments, but I don't think statistically was as good, especially when adjusting for the era. I think Mark Sanchez probably has a bigger impact, though, on Jets history with those 2 back-to-back championship games. That's really tough.
People are going to be very mad or very happy listening to it. And the beauty of it all is that I don't think one tier list would be the same throughout the way people categorize it. We're really cheating by making so many categories and fitting them very specifically. But this is the first time we're doing it. We're trying to do one every week, and we'll make a new one. And if you have suggestions, we'll go out and do it.
What if we just put them both in good?
Oh, I mean, we could do it. We could definitely do it. I kind of want one to be in great for the graphic, right? Like the way that they're fit.
I know, but
I think
Chad and Vinny are much better quarterbacks than those guys. If anything, you could put Kenny O there, but Kenny O also was 50 and 55 record-wise with the Jets. Ooh.
Yeah, and we'll go back to it. We'll do one final swing at the end. We'll wrap up though. I made a not good category. I almost want to delete it and put Geno in the underperformer.
I agree.
So we don't like to talk bad about ex-Jets. Also, Geno has, since he left the Jets, he's always said positive things on Twitter. It's very easy to clown a team who's been very bad over the past decade, and he's done a great job. He always connects to fans. He's a guy that if he wasn't on Seattle and we weren't taking their draft pick at a King's ransom, I'd have no problem watching him. Right.
So just like when Mark Sanchez left and went to the Eagles, went to the Cowboys, the Redskins, I was like fired up whenever those teams would play.
Yep, I agree. And Zach Wilson, I don't think you can put in any category right now. He's on his own.
Yeah, what do we do? Do we just leave him off?
We leave him off, and we come back to it a year and a half later. I think it's fair to make an assessment after one full season and another half. You can come back and say, okay, this is where Zach Wilson fits in the lore of the Jets. But right now, I don't think you can make that determination.
We should put him in elite and just piss everybody off.
We could absolutely do that. Now, do we want to move one of the good Jet quarterbacks to veterans who did their job just to make the balance a little better? I think you can move Fitz down there. And
I don't care about the balance. I just want to have an accurate list. I think that all those guys are very similar in their Jet careers where, they turned the ball over a little bit too much, but they had some real success, especially some tastes of success, like Favre being 8-3 and the Jets being like a legitimate Super Bowl contender is something that a lot of Jet quarterbacks have never had. Fitzpatrick throwing for the most touchdowns in a season in Jets history. Sanchez with the back-to-back AFC Championship games. Ken O'Brien with the 2 Pro Bowls. And, statistically, a very good career. Made the playoffs 3 times with the Jets. I think all those guys deserve to be in that category. I don't think any of them are really veterans who, quote unquote, did their job because, like Fitz, if you had a veteran who did their job and came in and, went 7-9, blah, 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 like he didn't do that. He threw for 31 touchdowns and won 5 games in a row. And most years would make the playoffs.
It's fair. It's a good point. It's almost like with Fitz, though, do you balance that going above expectations one year and then going below the next year? I agree with you. I'm getting like objectively happy looking at this list because out of all the franchises, you put the Bears, you put the Jets, you put teams that have never figured out the quarterback. We have a fun time looking at these names and these photos here. There's not one guy that we look at this list and say, go fuck yourself. So I love what we've done here. The question I have for you before we wrap up, is there any row that you think you would move a person above a different person as if they were a better fit in that category? So do you think Vinny should be ahead of Chad and so forth down the line?
That's interesting. It actually looks like you probably should put McCown over Neil O'Donnell just because he fits so well in multiple ways.
Well, McCown versus Boomer.
Oh, I'm sorry. Leave Boomer ahead then. Boomer's better than McCown. Neil O'Donnell's an underperformer.
Yep. I think it's kind of good the way it is. And Dick Wood, of course, needs to be at the top of his category.
Dick Wood is the most Dick Wood.
And I love Al. I mean, I've texted you on numerous occasions, random Al Duro stats. Like the guy was great. But I'm very confident. I'm very happy with the list we created here.
No, I like it. I did like we did a blog like a year and a half ago, and I did the top 5 Jets at each position, and I had Vinny over Chad, which kind of was a little controversial, but I don't think Chad's highs were ever as high as Vinny's high of being 12-1 and throwing 29 touchdowns and 7 picks. Maybe you could and Fitz would probably be the one who would move to veterans who did their job, so he should be at the end of that list, which he is. You could move Sanchez ahead of Kenny O.
You could. I'm down to do it because of the accomplishments. A little factor that we watched all of Mark Sanchez's games. When you go back, and I know we're almost probably at like 25 minutes now. When you go back and you watch the 2009 to 2011 seasons in a row, I did it during the pandemic. Sanchez was not a good quarterback for the first 2 years, you can call it. 2010, he was very clutch. Yeah. But the teammates gravitated toward him. Like the young, brand new prospect, it felt so genuine and cool listening to the broadcast and them talking about it. And when he has a bad game, comes back and throws for 2 touchdowns and plays good with no turnovers. Damn, that was a very, very fun era. And a lot of people thought we could relive that with Zach Wilson's rookie year. And we haven't obviously had the same success or the same team around him. But I have nothing but positive thoughts when it comes to Mark. And I love looking at the list that we created here.
No, I think this list is really good. Mark Sanchez is a top 5 player, my favorite, of my favorite players in Jets history. Dude is just awesome. Self-aware, cool, fun, easy to root for. I miss those teams. Like, that's it. That's the last time, obviously, the Jets were in the playoffs. So, vicious.
And we'll wrap it here. We have we can do unlimited tier list in Jets history. So we're going to try to do one every week, maybe every other week, but we'll start out doing every week.
Yeah, we can throw in some Sporkle quizzes and some fun stuff like that.
Definitely. So if you have not done so, hit that subscribe button, hit that like button. Let's, get after this. And of course, this is NYJ Matt and NYJ Mike. We do the Broadway Jets podcast once a week. You can follow us on Twitter, and we'll leave it there.